Right. So Halam on Twitter, that's at Parhypostatus, right? He has a very good Substack as well. So he asked me to talk about unity, infinity, and limit, and how I see these relating in Proclus and also in general. And so, you could go on and talk about this forever. So, and for people who want to read more, I mean, I'm sure Parapastatis knows the text, but was John Gregg's great monograph on first principles and late Neoplatonism from Brill. And but I wanted to just make some very basic points here about what these are and what their motivations are. So, unity is the ultimate first principle, the origin of all things in Neoplatonism. And Proclus, at the beginning of his Elements of Theology, he starts with a series of arguments about unity. And he starts with these arguments about unity with arguments about multitude, arguing that you cannot conceive of something that is purely multiple without any kind of unity, and also that the unity of each thing depends on unity itself, which is distinct from all the multiple things, um, and is separate from all the multiple things, more importantly. Um, and so unity here is this principle that is absolutely simple. It has no composition in itself. It has no parts or anything like that. And it is what explains why each thing is one, right? So that's unity. And great, the great differential of Neoplatonism, which is post-Platinian Neoplatonism, is to recognize that this first principle, unity itself, is something over and above, or that transcends nous, right? So Middle Platonists and Peripatetics, they held that the highest principle of all things was a nous, right? Something like a cosmic reason, and it's like what we refer to when we say things like reason orders the world, everything happens according to reason. Um, and so it was, for instance, by Aristotle, conceived of thought thinking itself. So uh, this separately existing knowledge, right, or thing that makes itself known. And Plotinus had argued that this inevitably had some kind of duality in it, because there had to be, on the one hand, the known content, what makes itself known, and the activity of knowing. So this was a basic duality, and this meant that this first principle was actually dual. It had some kind of multiplicity in it, and this therefore demanded that it should be posterior to something that explained its unity, right? We have to postulate unity as the ultimate principle of things. Now, later Platonists, they tend to think that there is something prior to nous, which is not unity, which is what they call being, right? To on, right? Which I prefer to understand as presence. I think presence is a better um, translation of this, because presence, it captures the fact that being is, in some sense, the ground of intelligibility, but it's not yet fully the thought thing, right? So the fact that so there can be unintelligible presences, right? So you can think about um, uh, Rudolf Otto kind of experiences of Mysterium Tremendans et Fascinans, of these awesome, sublime things. It's certainly something that's present there, um, but is not intelligible. And you can also think of like cosmic horror, Cthulhu, um, and Heideggerian angst. There's a number of different uh, moods, fundamental moods, we could say, that point to the fact that presence is something that is basic to intelligibility, but is prior to it. It's not yet intelligible. And and with being, they meant, of course, well, the principle of all beings. They meant what Parmenides thought, right? When he said that being is one and that all things are one. Right. So to say being or presence is to say all the present things, right? It is the all of reality. Now, all of reality in the sense of the let's say the in principle intelligible reality, the reality that has to be there in order for there to be any knowledge at all. So this is not yet this is the point. This is not yet nous. This is not yet something that explains itself, that makes itself known, that is self-explanatory by revealing its causes, and self-explicatory by unfolding its consequences. No, it if it encompasses everything, then it just is. It doesn't go anywhere outside itself. It does not produce an activity over and above itself. It just is presence, right? It is the connected presence of all things, right? Presence is presence too, and this is everything being present to each other. Right? It is the that within which all knowledge develops, within which all knowledge takes place. And therefore, the Platinian analysis of nous in terms of ousia and energeia, right? Or he also sometimes does in terms of dunamis and energeia. So in terms of the content of knowledge and the activity of knowing, doesn't work to show that being is multiple, right? In order for you to show that being is multiple, you need a different analysis, right? And that is what infinity and limit give us. Infinity and limit, the function of them is to give an analysis of presence, right? And which is a something that is prior to and more basic than a kind of multiplicity that's more basic than the multiplicity of that's in nous, in reason. So what is this? Well, it's the idea that if you have something that is present, and on the other hand, on the one hand, that thing has an existence of its own, right? That is its limit, also, which Proclus calls also its hyparxis, right? So its own existence, right? And also, it has to be in some way present in other things, right? Or other things have to be present in it. Otherwise, there's no presence. If it's absolutely just itself and has no intrinsic relations to anything else, then it's not going to be present, right? Presence involves, at the very least, something else being in it or it being in something else. Right? And that is infinity. Infinity is quite literally what breaks through its limit. So it is either in something else or something is in it, right? This is also called dunamis, right? This is also called power. So for Proclus, infinity is the most basic power, right? Power is basically being in something else or something else being in you, right? We can say that perfect power, the power to act on something else, is you being in something else. Imperfect power, the power to be affected by something else, is something else being in you. And what's proper to things that are presences is that their existence involves their being in other things or other things being in them. Their existence is mixed, as in the Neoplatonic terminology, with their power. Their limit is mixed with their infinity. You cannot pry the two apart, right? So, in the case uh, of bodies, this is clear. Their existence involves being in a place and being in time. It involves uh, being in something else and also being affected by other bodies uh, and things like that. But you can also see this, for instance, in what are called Platonic forms, eide, right? Which are universal realities like universal horse or universal love or universal justice. the existence of universal justice involves it ordering the world according to justice. The existence of universal beauty involves it ordering the world according to beauty, or ordering the world according to all these erotic attractions that lead beings to produce new beautiful things and so on, right? So there, its its existence is mixed up with its power, and its power is mixed up with its existence. You cannot pry the two together, the two apart. And so that is what infinity and limit are doing. They are like a different way to. They're a way to show how this simpler thing than reason, which is being itself or presence itself, is still somehow multiple, right? Whereas, um, and then you do get problems, right? Problems that Damascus raises. But it seems that what limit does and what unity does are really similar. And why shouldn't there be something also parallel to infinity? Why shouldn't there be a pure multitude um, next to the pure unity? And I think that Damascus is right about that. Damascus' postulation of a pure multitude alongside pure unity makes perfect sense. But that would be the subject uh, uh, for a different video. So these are just my initial considerations about unity, infinity, and limit, right? So like, what are the motivations for postulating besides unity, also infinity and limit? Okay.